All right, welcome to the Young Church. Jake, you ready with you guys. It's gonna be a great day. Let's have fun, okay? So, Avenatti, he's coming up in a second. Donald Trump thinks that planes are invisible. Literally. That's later in the program, okay? I told you he is unbelievably stupid. Okay, so some fun stuff on the show today, but also. As you're aware, from time to time we do anger. Well, it'll be one of those times. That's on the Medicare for All story. The Democratic leadership is the worst. They are doing exactly what I told you they would do. Exactly, even worse than what I predicted.
Some on the left are accusing these protesters who have been protesting Nancy Pelosi of being sexist, even if some of them are women themselves.
In fact, if you saw our video, we had exclusive cameras in there in the beginning, and then the rest of the press caught up. Most of the protesters were women.
Yeah.
Okay, and the congresswoman who showed up was also a woman. Okay, and by the way, what did I tell you guys? What did I tell you? What's the first thing that the establishment Democrats are going to do as soon as the midterm elections are over? They're going to play identity politics. Okay, now when you say, hey, Tucker Carlson, Fox News, Donald Trump is obsessed with white identity and they play identity politics, that's 1,000% right, right? When we defend African Americans in this country, that is not identity politics. That's actually trying to get justice, okay? Identity politics is when you take issues that aren't real and then use them, well, hey, look, any criticism of Pelosi is sexist by definition. Any criticism of Ben Carson or Kanye West is racist by definition. Hilarious, ridiculous. Anyway, that anger is coming up. Don't get me riled up in the beginning, Anna.
Seems like you're already there.
I think I'm already there. Anyway.
But is it as riled up as your collar is right now?
I know, right?
That is quite the collar.
You know why? I'm popping collars. Okay, that's a thing, right?
Yes, from several years ago. But yes,
yeah, all right. Okay. My collars are large and in charge. You know what? A very strong collar.
It is a strong collar.
Very strong.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Anyways, the other two things I'm riled about real quick is I can't catch John, and now it is officially starting to drive me crazy. TYT.com/jank to become a member, for God's sake, okay? So some bitch has a 12-person lead, and he will not relinquish it. Every day I go forward, he goes forward a little bit more. Every day it's a 12-person lead. And Anna continues to pull away. She's now almost got a 100-person lead on me.
What? Okay.
It's driving me crazy. TYT.com/jank to become a member, get 18 of our, 17 of our shows, commercial free, TYT.com/jank.
You guys are the best.
All right, what am I gonna do with this? Okay, anyway, and then I also need you guys to panic because it's 10 days of Black Friday and this is day 2. Okay, what are we having on day 2? 20% off of the Members Creation Collection. Ooh, membership has its privileges. Okay, shoptyt.com, panic time. Casper, go.
All right. Yesterday, news broke and TMZ reported erroneously that Michael Avenatti was arrested and charged with domestic violence, and the erroneous part of the report indicated that he had allegedly committed domestic violence against his estranged wife. However, to correct that story, his estranged wife has come forward and said, no, that did not happen. In fact, I've never had any type of domestic violence issue with Michael Avenatti. He's never laid a hand on me. Now, to give you some more details on that, Miss Story Avenatti was not subject to any such incident. Further, she was not at Mr. Avenatti's apartment on the date that this alleged incident occurred. My client states that there has never been domestic violence in her relationship with Michael and that she has never known Michael to be physically violent toward anyone. In fact, Avenatti's first wife came forward and also backed him up. First wife also came to his defense, calling him a loving father who has never been abusive. Now, right now, it's unclear what's really going on. And I wanna be 100% clear about that with you guys. I think this story is incredibly fishy. And honestly, I'm going to criticize myself for not being more suspicious when this story broke as we were on the air yesterday. The original story was reported by TMZ. Harvey Levin, who runs TMZ, is a huge Trump supporter, huge Trump fan. Now, that's not to say that there was malicious intent. We don't know if there was malicious intent.
Probably there was, though, because Harvey Levin has supported Donald Trump through all of his actions, monstrous as they are, against every community that in this country, including his own. He does it for profit, I guess. Oh, hey, I have access to power. You must be so proud, Harvey. So TMZ usually has videos. That's what they're famous for. Did they have a video of this one, of Michael Avenatti striking the woman?
I don't believe so.
No, they didn't. No. Oh, that's weird. Why are we listening to TMZ? Look, don't listen to any Trump allies. They're all total liars, okay? We told you not to listen to National Enquirer and David Pecker. And and people are like, oh, no, well, the National Enquirer is reporting Ted Cruz has 5 mistresses. Hillary Clinton has a brain aneurysm. Are you nuts? Okay, and it turns out, just like we told you, they made up stuff on behalf of Donald Trump. Now David Pecker has turned around and given evidence against Trump, presumably, because he's talking to the special counsel. We told you! And then any right-wing website, Gateway Pundit, reporting some of this total trash. Yeah. Nothing but lies. So no, you don't believe that stuff. Harvey Levin, you got any video? No, then shut up. Okay, you a clear, biased, Trump-supporting clown. Okay, have I been clear enough, Harvey?
So one other thing that I do want to mention, forget about TMZ. What does matter is what we are hearing from police. Police are not releasing many details, but they did confirm that Michael Avenatti did get arrested on possible domestic violence charges, domestic violence accusations, and they're investigating it. But that's the only details that we know from law enforcement at this time. With that said, though, Michael Avenatti is trying to be clear with everyone and saying that he has never laid a hand on a woman. In fact, during a press conference, here's what he had to say.
I have never struck a woman. I never will strike a woman. I have been an advocate for women's rights my entire career, and I'm going to continue to be an advocate. I am not going to be intimidated from stopping what I am doing. I am a father to 2 beautiful, smart daughters. I would never disrespect them by touching a woman inappropriately or striking a woman. I am looking forward to a full investigation, at which point I am confident that I will be fully exonerated.
Okay, so look, guys, so why am I so upset? Do I know for a fact that Avenatti did not hit a woman? No, I don't know that. But that's what happens when you put these kind of charges out there. And it's not corroborated yet. They said he was charged with a felony. Not true, not charged with a felony. Not true, that we know, okay? They said that it was his estranged wife that got hit. Not true, we already know 2 things that Trump allies said about Avenatti are totally not true and reported by all of the press immediately. Now right now, we don't know about whether the sheriff's office says, or the police in LA say, look, there is a victim, alleged victim outside of the wives, okay? Do they have enough evidence that they've already charged him with a felony, etc.? No, okay, so it's up in the air. But if you, and Avenatti says, look, I understand the cops had to do what they had to do given the situation that they had, somebody reports something, well, what are they supposed to do, right? So he's actually really decent to the cops, right? And he said they treated him with respect and they acted in the right way. It forces all reasonable people like us to say, of course there's no way to know right now, so we don't know. But we know the sources, and the sources are trash.
So let's talk about the sources, because that is extremely relevant at the moment. So in his denial of committing any type of domestic violence, Michael Avenatti mentioned someone named Jacob Wall, this very young man who created a company known as Surefire Intelligence. So the attorney suggested in a tweet that far-right conspiracy theorist Jacob Wall was to blame for his arrest. Now, Jacob Wall says, no, there's no way this is happening. In fact, let's go to graphic 12. Michael Avenatti seems to believe that I am responsible for him raising his hand to a woman. I am not. Will he release the pictures of his battered victim? Well, interesting, because why would Michael Avenatti think that Jacob Wall is behind this or that Surefire Intelligence is behind this? Maybe it's because Surefire Intelligence tweeted, Surefire Intelligence strikes again. Let's take a look at graphic 8.
There it is. So they are taking credit for Avenatti being arrested in the first place. So now it's possible that they're doing it after the fact, right? Like, oh, okay, we'll just jump in and try to. They're notorious liars, and I'll explain that that's fact-based in a second. Okay, so that's one possibility. The other possibility is they framed him, and right-wing frame people all the time. In fact, this same exact group and this same exact guy, Jacob Wall, just tried to frame Robert Mueller on allegations against women.
Yeah, rape allegations.
Almost the same exact thing. Where one is, okay, rape allegations, totally unfounded, and is now reported to the FBI investigating Jacob Wall and Berkman, his partner in crime in that case, maybe quite literally, right? And in this case now, hey, look at that, another Trump opponent, and another set of charges about how domestic violence, and from the same guys.
So I actually do want to get into that in more detail, because it gives you a sense of who Jacob Wall is, what Surefire Intelligence is, and how they are essentially doing smear campaigns and trying to go after people with criminal allegations that have absolutely no evidence, absolutely no credibility or merit behind them. So as Cenk had mentioned, Jacob Wall had accused Mueller of committing rape back in the 70s. And he claimed that he had the victim, the woman, and he even had a press conference with Berkman, and the press conference was a complete and utter disaster. This is what led to the FBI beginning its investigation into Jacob Wall. By the way, Jacob Wall has been barred for life from futures trading due to defrauding investors in 2016. So that's who Jacob Wall is. Anyway, so I want to give you some portions of this press conference to give you an idea of what a joke he is. I mean, it was such a joke that reporters couldn't help but laugh at him during the conference.
He was supposed to bring out the so-called victim of Robert Mueller. And one other important thing here, super important to note, that in the fake Mueller controversy that Wall started, they tried to pay women to make up stories. And the women came forward and are now talking to the FBI saying, yeah, they tried to pay me to say something bad about Mueller.
A woman by the name of Lorraine Parsons said that she was approached and offered $20,000 to lie about being raped by Mueller.
So the same guy takes credit for the Avenatti arrest, is known now as a person who pays women to lie about political opponents. This clown of clowns. We got more information on him, but now with that background, let's look at this hilarious, ridiculous press conference they put together. Where's the woman? Let's find out.
The Washington Post reported that Mr. Mueller, they re-reported that Mr. Mueller was at jury duty as to discredit this accuser. That's why they re-reported it. That's why it's going around.
Jacob,
but real quick, excuse me.
August 3rd, 2010.
Excuse me. Rather than double checking and saying, wait a second, was he only at jury duty? Sometimes people go to jury duty, but they're also somewhere else. Was he only at jury duty? No, hang on, it's not funny. This is not a laughing matter.
No, it is, because you're a clown. And you just squirted some water out of the flower on your lapel. And you got big floppy shoes on. Where's the witness? They're like, we're gonna do a big press conference. We've got a witness, we've got a woman who says that Mueller did terrible things. And then do the press conference, and everybody said ahead of time, and we covered it ahead of time, saying there won't be a woman. They've done press conferences like this before. Berkman, his partner, this is what he's known for. He's like, oh, I've got somebody, it's gonna be an amazing press conference, and nobody shows up. Every single time. Yeah. He's like, this is not a laughing matter. Well, where's the woman? Oh yeah, you made it up.
Okay. There's more video that I want to show you, but before we get to that, I have to give you this other wonderful nugget. So Surefire Intelligence, of course, reporters are going to investigate it to try to figure out whether or not this is a credible organization. And so the company argued that they had international investigators. So you would go to the website to see who these international investigators are. And the person stationed in Israel was Bar Raffaelli, who is an Israeli supermodel.
Well, they must be really well connected. No, look, that's why I said he's clown of all clowns. He's pretending to run this surefire intelligence thing. You go to the website and look at the pictures. Christoph Waltz, okay, supermodels, actors, etc. And he didn't bother taking like random people. He took super famous people and pretended that they were people working for surefire intelligence. How lazy and stupid and incompetent are you? But one of my favorites is he's like, no, it's okay. It's not really me behind it. It's Matthew Cohen, managing partner at Surefire Intelligence, and it's got Matthew Cohen's picture, except he's in the shadows, so you can't see him. Like, first of all, who puts that picture up online where you can't see somebody's face? And then they figured out it's actually Wolf's picture. Oh, no, you're such an idiot.
And the phone number for the Surefire Intelligence headquarters goes to Jacob Wool's mom's house.
He's doing it out of his mommy's basement. Out of his mommy's basement. And the entire national media took it seriously.
It's amazing. No, to be fair to the national media, they thought he was a joke. They didn't report on it as if it was serious.
Well,
so I don't.
But guys, look. I know we reported on it yesterday too, and I know that it's so tempting because news breaks, and then progressives we're so fair, and we want to say, okay, if it's on our side, it doesn't matter at all, right? But TMZ is a Trump ally. They're not real. They're not a real news organization. National Enquirer is not real. Gateway Pundit is total crap. It's horse crap. Now I know you didn't rely on them, and no one in their right mind should. But a lot of people in Washington do. Well, I don't know. That's a right wing source. I have a source from the right wing, right? And so look, and they put people in an impossible situation because let's say that it was done to a right winger. Okay, now Sean Hannity did not do this. I want to be clear. Okay, I'm using it as a hypothetical. If somebody made up charges against Sean Hannity I don't know who the woman is. I don't know if they brought it in. But in our hypothetical, if we think that Wool did it and it's fake, right? Right? So somebody says, oh, okay, here's a woman with bruised face and Sean Hannity did it. Now, let's say it's not true, okay, and a left-wingers never do this. Never, ever, ever. It is not even, do not call it even. They're goddamn liars, and our side almost never does it, okay? But if a left-winger did it, first of all, they'd be immediately disowned. No one would ever cite them or work with them again, right? On the right wing, they're celebrated and applauded. But how unfair would it be to Sean Hannity for the entire national media to say he's a wife beater? He beat a woman, right? And by the way, I see on social media today, all day, left-wing people, progressives, I said, I'm done with Avenatti. Avenatti's the worst. How the hell is he supposed to recover from that? So if it turns out to be fake, what percentage of the people who saw the first story will see the second story? 25%, 35%? If he's lucky, 50%. Half the people will forever believe that he beat his wife, right? And so this is how they play dirty tricks, and the mainstream media aids and abets them by calling it even.
Look, like I said, I made the mistake yesterday, and I feel horrible about it, and I should have been a lot more skeptical. But it's difficult to balance being fair with being skeptical, because on one hand, I'm always worried that, hey, if it's someone on our side, do I have a bias that's so dominant that I avoid that story? So it's a juggling act. I should have considered the source much more. And again, I apologize. And we're going to correct ourselves every time we get something wrong.
Look, and we didn't rely on right-wing websites like the mainstream media does.
It was TMZ.
It was TMZ. And TMZ is, to be fair, and because we can't help ourselves, because we constantly are fair, where the other side is constantly, brutally, ridiculously unfair, okay? TMZ is not National Enquirer. National Enquirer makes up stories for a living as a regular basis. That is their core business, right? TMZ often breaks stories that are real, and is including about domestic violence, okay? Chris Brown, for example, et cetera, right? But now we know Harvey Levin, turns out, doesn't care. And he will choose political bias over the truth. So that's it, we're done with TMZ. And no one, if you're a respectable news organization, you should never quote TMZ again. because they do propaganda for Donald Trump. Okay, now we know, lesson learned, lesson learned.
So I promised, and it's kind of awkward to play these videos now because we moved on from the Jacob Wall portion of this conversation, but just for shiggles, because it's too much fun. Here's the second video of the press conference that Jacob Wall had with Jack Berkman.
So you're 20 years old, Jacob, right? You're 20 years old. Describe to me your investigative experience. And when did you get this honorary Harvard Law degree?
It's a figure of speech. Okay.
Okay, so you're 20 years old. What is your background as a professional investigator?
Like I said, I've done a handful of matters. I've done a handful of matters like this over the years. My mission here is not to establish a narrative. It's not to follow an agenda.
Wait a minute.
It's to bring forth. Hang on. It's to bring forth the facts and let the facts speak for themselves, and that's what we've done.
Jack Berkman, I get that he's a bad guy, but I feel like even bad guys understand that it's not a good thing to associate yourself with someone that stupid.
An honorary degree from Harvard is not a figure of speech. That's just not a thing. That's not a thing. So look, we get it. Okay, I'm not blaming the media for believing Jacob Wall, although sometimes they have in the past. And much more important than Jacob Wall is the people he's connected to, Gateway Pundit and other trash on the right wing side, who constantly report lies. Okay, but Harvey Levin has got a lot to answer for. So was one of your sources Jacob Wall? We already know that you completely incorrectly reported that Avenatti hit his wife. We know for a fact that's not true. So who was your source? Are you trash, just like Jacob Wall? Do you also have an honorary degree from Harvard that's a figure of speech? So people should ask Harvey Levin these questions, and if he doesn't have good answers, you should never, ever, ever quote TMZ again.
Yeah. One final video, and then we got to go to break. But come back after the video. Let's take a look.
Gentleman in the back. Yes, sir.
Are you both prepared for federal prison?
No, we are not.
Disaster.
Well, look, we don't yet know the full details, as we've now said a number of times, okay? But if it turns out that they did make it up, as they have time and time and time again, these clowns on the right, okay? Now, unfortunately, they won't go to prison for a long, long time because it's technically a misdemeanor in California, and you can't get more than a year, okay? But they should give him 364 days, and they should make sure that Jacob Wall goes to prison if it turns out that he made it up and he paid someone, etc. And Avenatti should sue TMZ out of existence. He should own TMZ, okay?
We got to take a quick break. When we come back, consequences for people involved in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi? Kind of. We'll give you the details on that and more when we return.
Luis from the member section writes in, Cenk asked how we heard about TYT. In a Buddhist chat room, a gay Buddhist man who lives in an Asian country where Buddhism is frowned upon would post TYT videos. That was maybe 4 years ago. I got hooked and finally became a member. Luis, I love that story. So, man, that makes life worth living. Like the idea that in a completely different country, there's a man who's oppressed because of his beliefs and his identity. And the way he fights back is by posting our videos. It's the greatest thing
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, "You must unlearn what you have learned." And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
I could hope for. And so thank you guys. And if you're a member, you also did that. We say it all the time because it's absolutely true. We cannot do this show without you. And so thank you to all of you, okay? And in fact, we're gonna do on November 20th a Thanksgiving show where we're gonna do stories about what we're thankful in our personal lives, but thankful to you guys for the different things that you have sent in. So there's 2 things to check out next week. November 19th, we're gonna do a special free postgame. Now, normally postgames are just for the members, but this one's gonna be available to everyone, but if people are gonna ask us questions, the people asking us questions are all members. And you'll get to see a lot of them on video. So it's this cool technology where they basically video conference with us and ask us questions live. Everybody will get to see it, but only members ask questions. So tyt.com/join to become a member. And then on November 20th, we're gonna do 3 hours after the show, a Thanksgiving special. And there are huge surprises on that show. Do not miss that show. You're gonna absolutely love it, okay? So one last comment here, because we're running short on time. This one's from YouTube Super Chat. Kavols Tam writes in, you guys consistently go out of your way to attempt to put aside your bias and be objective and fair. Thank you for being a bastion of journalism in a landscape of information warfare. And it's true. And man, if it's a thank you for saying that. And if it's a real story about someone on the left, as there's been plenty, we report it. We don't hide it. We never lie about the right wing. And we got one side who lies. You got the mainstream media who calls lies and truth equal. And then you got us who are honest about our perspective and trying our hardest to get you the real facts. So thank you for noticing that and appreciating. We appreciate it. And look, guys, one last time, we all do it together, right? That's why we call it Homo Progressives. And when I say it's not just us, it's you guys that are the Young Turks. Without membership, we don't exist. So if you can, insider, activist, any level you can, at tyt.com/join. All right, thank you. All right, Anna, what's next?
All right. Following the murder and the dismemberment of a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, it appears that there will be some consequences for some of the individuals involved, but no consequences for the main person involved. Now, let's just get this out of the way. Saudi Prince Salman will not have to deal with any consequences, but a number of people who work below him will. So Saudi prosecutors said that they would seek the death penalty for 5 people allegedly involved in the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. A total of 11 people were charged, the Saudi Public Prosecutor's Office said, adding that the 5 people facing capital punishment were directly involved in ordering and executing the crime. So what the prosecutors allege is that, well, they actually contradict themselves. So one of the accusations is that there was really no intention to murder Khashoggi. The bad actors showed up and they gave him a sedative that he unfortunately overdosed on. And at that point, the evildoers panicked and decided to dismember his body. The other accusation is that no one, no one intended, like there was no intent to kill him. They say Khashoggi resisted going back to their country and was killed. However, his murder was premeditated, as we had announced before. That's what the Turkish officials are saying based on the audio and the evidence that they have. But go ahead, Cenk, you wanna jump in? I'm gonna find the contradiction in a second.
So you don't bring a bone saw to an interrogation. And you only bring a bone saw, as they did with them, unless you're gonna dismember the guy. That's why you bring it, right? And so this whole idea that it was not premeditated is nonsense. And look, we already know that the Saudi government has lied about this on multiple occasions. In the beginning, they said he walked out of the embassy. That was obviously not true. They in fact brought a body double and put the dead man's clothes on him. How's that for premeditated? We have pictures of the body double with Khashoggi's actual clothes on him after they had murdered him, okay? So then they said, oh yeah, the interrogation went slightly wrong because he fought back. And by the way, the Saudi prosecutor is still saying, oh, there was a fight and a quarrel, right? The Turkish officials say, no, we have the audio of him being strangled immediately upon entering the consulate. Okay, so you don't bring a 15-person assassination team to do that. To just do an interrogation.
By the way, including a medical expert who understands how to dismember a body. I mean, why would they have that person there unless this was a premeditated murder? By the way, so I wanted to mention the contradiction. So at first they say, no, it was not premeditated. No one intended to kill Khashoggi going in. It was just that he overdosed on the sedative that they gave him. And then they later say that Khashoggi resisted going back to their country and was killed. So they went in with they wanted to kill him. I mean, they wanted to murder him. It's so obvious.
There are no 15-person rogue assassination teams. Okay, that's ordered by the highest people in the country. And that is what logic dictates. Now, they say, well, you don't have a memo of the crown prince ordering it. So we get to get away with it. Congratulations, you must be so proud. So what I'm super curious about is who they're killing. Because look, could it be, there's two possibilities. One is they took some folks from that 15-person team that were dispensable and they decided, well, you drew the short straw. You were stupid enough to listen to the crown prince order that assassination. Now you'll be murdered for it in the cover-up, okay? Or they pick random people that they didn't like in the first place, more opponents of the regime, and they go, yeah, they were the ones who did it. That's the ticket. Right now, they won't even show the guy that they say was the ringleader of the interrogation team that committed the murder in the first place. So where is he, right? They're like, oh no, we can't show you him. Oh, God damn it. They'll likely kill a totally different person.
What the Saudi royals care about the most is their financial interests and protecting those financial interests. And so even if it were complete allies to the Saudi crown prince and they just followed his orders, I think that he would still carry out, capital punishment toward them just to save his own ass. Because this is all, look, maybe some of these guys are the bad actors. Maybe they do deserve some punishment. But let's not forget who the ringleader is. What's really happening here is, all right, no, but there are consequences. People are paying the price for what they did. Now let's just forget about this. That's what's really going on here. And the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope is the evidence that the Turks have on these Saudi officials. They have the audio recordings. There was a recording that the Turkish officials reported on and US intelligence knows about where one of these officials referenced the boss, like,
Make sure you tell your boss the instructions. So the boss presumably being Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, but the reports don't say that they use his name. So look, they can lie all they want and the lies could be as obvious as you could imagine, and they are very obvious here. That's not the question. The question is, are we going to decide to accept their lies as the United States government? And so we've done a little bit. We decided that we were going to
impose
sanctions on 17 Saudis for their roles in the murder of Khashoggi. Okay, wow, we're not gonna let that assassination team come into the country. Great, we appreciate it, right? But is it gonna affect the war machine that Saudi Arabia is using against the innocent civilians of Yemen? No, that's gonna keep on rolling, right? Funded by America, or at least weaponized by America, funded by the Saudi regime. And so will there be any consequence for the guy who actually ordered it? Nope. And so the US will probably just simply accept this and move on with their lives because there's too much money to make. As Pat Robertson, a Trump ally, said, I mean, what's one guy when there's so much money to make in those weapons deals? And he claims to be a Christian leader, okay? And finally, note to all the folks out there thinking of working with tyrants. You think they're on your side? There's only one thing a tyrant cares about, themselves. And the minute it's convenient, they'll throw you under a bus, they'll decapitate you. even if you listen to them or because you listen to them. By the way, there's another tyrant in another country who also likes to throw people under a bus that work for him. Note to them as well. When it comes to whose hide they're gonna save, it ain't gonna be yours. They'll sacrifice you so quick, and then they'll get their other tyrant friends to agree to the lie and move on.
So you have a story.
Yeah, well, so now we're gonna get much, much lighter, although it is also about weaponry. Okay. Donald Trump is a fascinating man. Some people think that he is smart. That is clearly not true. I'm going to prove it to you right now. Now, most people realize that planes are not invisible. Most, but not all. According to Donald Trump, as you're about to see, he thinks the F-35, which is a stealth fighter, is actually invisible to the naked eye. Super embarrassing. Let's watch.
The brand new F-35s, fighter jets, they're stealth. You can't see them. Other than that, they're easy to beat. I said to one of the pilots, I said, how good are these? They said, well, sir, the problem is you can't see them when you fight them. I said, that sounds like it's a big advantage. They said, it's an awfully big advantage. It's incredible equipment.
You schmuck. It's not Wonder Woman's jet, okay? Radar can't pick it up. That's why it's a stealth fighter. It's got great technology so that it evades radar. Not if you're in an actual fight with the jet and the other side's like, I can't see it. It's using its cloaking device. They're not Klingons. They're not Wonder Woman. Who's stupid enough to believe that? It's not the only time he's ever said it. He said it in the past as well. Let's go to that.
In particular, the F-35 fighter jet, which is, almost like an invisible fighter. I was asking the Air Force guys, I said, how good is this plane? They said, well, sir, you can't see it. I said, yeah, but in a fight, a fight like I watch on the movies, a fight, they're fighting. How good is this? They say, well, it wins every time because the enemy cannot see it. Even if it's right next to it, it can't see it.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
In case you weren't clear,
oh my God.
In case you thought he was referring to radar, he said, if you're right next to it, you can't see it. It's not invisible, you're so dumb. But you see, the thing is, it's not just his lack of intelligence, which is legendary. It's also his insecurity. He doesn't have the security and the confidence to turn around and ask an assistant, really, is a plane invisible? That seems unlikely, doesn't it?
I literally don't know what to say. Wow. Because in that second clip, he said in the first part of the statement, it's like invisible. So I'm like, maybe it means radar doesn't pick it up. And then he reiterated, but said, in a fight. I asked about it in a fight. And they said that you can't see it. So
it's right next to it and you can't see it. And do the people who told you that, do they also have lassos that, and little excellent little wristbands that bullets bounce off of? Okay, and he just doesn't understand the simplest concepts. Like, for example, clean coal. You remember this, Jem?
No.
Okay, watch this on clean coal.
I said, how does it do it in fights? And how do they do in fights with the F-35? I said, we do very well. You can't see it. You can't see it. So it's hard to fight a plane that you can't see, right?
Sure, we like that.
But that's an expensive plane that you can't see.
Okay, so he said it over and over again, but now let's go to the coal video.
Ended the war on beautiful clean coal. Clean coal, right? Clean coal. Brand new coal mine where they're going to take out clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
No, clean coal, first of all, is a misnomer to begin with, but it is not where you take out the coal and then clean it. God, man, ask somebody, for Christ's sake, if you're that stupid, at least have this much intelligence enough to know your ignorance. You have thousands of people working for you. You're the president of the United States. Why don't you ask someone, hey, what does clean coal mean? What does it mean that it's clean? Because I'm gonna brag about it. I'm gonna go on national television and talk about how great it is. Do they really take it out and scrub it?
Do you remember?
So dumb, he's so dumb.
Do you remember when George W. Bush had some sort of event that he was speaking at, and he said the following, somebody came up to me the other day and asked, where's Mandela? And I said, Mandela's dead. And Mandela was not dead. And then he claimed that Saddam Hussein killed all the Mandelas. And I remember thinking, this will go down in history as the dumbest moment in America. But no, it was not the dumbest moment in America. I don't know how it's possible for us to elect someone who's miraculously dumber. But Trump is that person. Yeah. Trump is that person.
Trump's like, Bush said that Saddam killed all the Mandelas, and then you think that's the dumbest moment? Hold my beer.
Oh my God.
Okay, now look, the Republican presidents are like bad photocopies of one another. Like Ronald Reagan was already not bright, and people had to feed him lines. He was an actor. Sometimes he couldn't even remember his lines, and people were like, "Whoa, man, he's really not bright." Okay, then you got George W. Bush, and you're like, "Sorry, Reagan. Turns out that's really dumb." Right? And another one from from Bush was, people like to lie, like disassemble. That means to lie. And it was obviously his word of the day, but no, that's dissemble, not disassemble. That means to take apart. Okay. And so then you thought, well, you can't beat that. You can't beat that. And they're like, no, one more photocopy. And then you got Trump. Puerto Rico is an island surrounded by water. Big water, ocean water, from the standpoint of water. Okay, this is the Republican Party. If you're a part of it, congratulations, you must be so proud.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Two quick comments for you guys. Well, three, and then we'll move on. The Stu822 writes in, we won't accept the assassination team into the country. So were we normally going to let them in? It's a good question. And they also got sanctions on top, to be fair. I Am Sock says, like I see in the movies, quoting Donald Trump, said by the man in charge of the nukes. At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
I know. I want to be ignorant. Like, I don't want to know about this stuff. It's so terrifying.
Yeah. By the way, I lied. I'm going to do 2 more comments. Vertinis writes in on Twitter. Well, of course the Saudis are going to give the murderers the death penalty. Can't have them talking about this later on. Well, that's a very good point. Whoever they are, whether they actually were the murderers or not. And on YouTube Super Chat, the Blue Wave Continues writes in, an important runoff election in the race for Georgia Secretary of State on December 4th. Support Democrat John Barrow, so that we can defeat Trump in 2020 through a free and fair election in this swing state. Thank you for writing that in. That is very important. We appreciate that. Okay, now Democratic leadership and anger. Let's do it.
All right. With Democrats taking charge of the House of Representatives, some of the more progressive members of Congress are pushing for a vote on Medicare for All legislation. Now, it's abundantly clear that this is legislation that's unlikely to go anywhere, especially considering the fact that Trump's the president and Republicans still control the Senate. But the whole point of this is to place pressure on establishment Democrats and party leaders who have not done nearly enough in securing a single-payer healthcare system for Americans. So supporters say they're going to push for a vote and organize grassroots efforts to pressure Democratic holdouts to sign on to the legislation. Now, some of these Democratic holdouts have released some statements about this, and it gives you an idea of how incredibly pathetic and weak they are. We'll get to that in just a second. But Representative Pramila Jayapal, who's awesome and also the co-chair of the Medicare for All caucus in the House, told supporters on an organizing call that simply expressing support for the idea is not enough. In fact, she was quoted as saying, "When we have that majority, we need to make sure that we put it to use." Could not agree more.
100% right. Go get him.
Now let's talk about some of the more establishment Democrats who are fighting back. Like right now, they're fighting back subtly, but when push comes to shove, they will play dirty tricks to try to prevent this from happening. Now, Congressman Ron Kind said many House Democrats, including members of the leadership, are not on board with the idea of government-run universal health insurance.
Yeah.
But I don't care what they want, okay? What you should be on board for is what the vast majority of Americans want, which is universal health care. Medicare for all, it polls well. The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want and making sure that people who were elected to represent the American people do the right thing. Seems like Ron Kind isn't interested in doing any of that.
Okay, so this is a perfect story for what's wrong with Washington because it has Democratic leadership being feckless and weak and pathetic as usual, and it has the mainstream media, in this case The Hill, reporter Peter Sullivan, with an article that backs up the establishment, gives no facts for the progressives at all, and smears them. Okay, so on Ron Kind, he said, it's not realistic that given that the Republicans control the Senate. Yeah, but you control the House. So instead of going, oh, but the Republicans won't let us, why don't you try? I know for Democratic leadership, that seems like a crazy idea. What you mean, like present our case and fight for it? What? Well, I don't understand what you're saying. Then how would I immediately surrender to the Republicans? Look at that preemptive surrender. Oh, but the Republicans control the House, the Senate. What could I do? I can't do anything. Right. Well, you have a mouth, don't you, Ron Kind? Can't you just also talk and make your case? But you don't want to make the case because you're actually corrupt. And you take money from those same healthcare industries that the Republicans take money from, and then you use the Republicans as an excuse and a shield not to do anything when you control the House. So I want to get to the press in a second.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly add, look, this is when Republicans were attempting to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And I'm not talking about recently, I'm talking about in the beginning when they first started trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. A common criticism that we would hear, not just from left-wing pundits, but also from members of Congress, Democratic members of Congress was, look, they want to repeal it, but they have no other ideas. They have no other plan to take the Affordable Care Act's place. And that was not only a common criticism, that was a valid criticism. The whole point of this Medicare for All proposal and the proposed legislation and vote is about applying pressure to these corporate Democrats. That's part one. But part two is showing that there is a unified effort among Democrats to push for a healthcare system that would actually be successful, that wouldn't just provide access to health insurance, but would provide healthcare coverage to every single American.
They don't want that. They're corrupt. Okay, so I'm going to explain why in a second. But first, I want to go to Peter Sullivan wrote this article for The Hill. But look, to be fair to him, almost everybody in mainstream media in Washington writes crap like this. Okay, they regurgitate stuff that is fact-free, totally right-wing propaganda, and by the way, aided and abetted by Democratic leadership. So then if you ask Peter Sullivan, my guess is he would say, I don't know, the Republicans and Democratic leaders both agreed that Medicare for All is terrible. So I just wrote an article that said they both agree that it's terrible and that we shouldn't do it. And the progressives are not realistic, they're not pragmatic. So I wrote it down because I'm not a reporter, I'm a stenographer, just like every other reporter in Washington. Anyway, so I'm gonna give you evidence though. He wrote, Republicans use Medicare for All, otherwise known as single payer, as a leading area of attack on Democrats during the 2018 midterm elections. But wait a minute, Peter, don't you want to point out a couple of things here? Number one, Anna's right when she said, no, they didn't. Democrats used healthcare as their number one issue. The Republicans hid from the issue of healthcare, so that's actually factually totally incorrect. So then number two, if they did use it to try to defeat the Democrats in the House, how'd that turn out? The Democrats have already picked up 34 seats. There's 8 seats still left undecided. They'll likely have about 36 seat pickup. Okay, even if they stayed at 34, that's a gigantic victory for Democrats in the House. So why would you write the sentence saying, well, the Republicans beat up the Democrats over healthcare? Well, they won on healthcare. They just won a huge percentage. Why wouldn't you write the polling on it? It's right now, Medicare for All polls at 70%. I don't know, maybe you and your buddies in Washington, since you don't know it, but you hate the left. You're so dismissive of progressives. This article is oozing contempt. So why don't you do your job and find the poll? It's 70% of the country wants Medicare for all, 70%, and you make it seem like it's unrealistic and unpragmatic, and as if it was like a winning issue for the Republicans. It's the exact opposite of what's true. Do you know that 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all? No, you don't know that if you read this article because they didn't write it. Another sentence, right after that, same paragraph, he said, they touted, the Republicans touted a recent cost estimate by the Mercatus Center at George Mason University, which puts the bill's price tag at $32 trillion over 10 years. Now, there is no mention that that's a Koch-funded study, so that is terribly misleading. And number two, there's no mention of what Medicare for All would save. It makes it seem like, oh, we would keep the healthcare system we have now, and including all of its costs, and then we would add $32 trillion on top. Now, if you know anything at all, Peter Sullivan and The Hill and your editors at The Hill, you know that that's not true. Now you could say, hey, look, Bernie Sanders and progressives say it would save $34 trillion and has to be a cost savings overall of $2 trillion. But we don't believe that because we hate the left and we think it would only save 30 trillion. Whatever your argument is, but you can't pretend, as this article does, that it is $32 trillion on top of the current healthcare system. That is in effect a lie.
That's a common trick. Now, look, I don't know this writer and I don't know his true intentions. It appears that he doesn't have good intentions, but I don't know without
I don't know and I don't care about his intentions.
But I do want to make sure that and you guys are so smart, you probably already know this, but for anyone who might be joining in for the first time, understand that that is a common trick, a common tactic by people, corporatists, both Democrat and Republican, who do not want a single payer healthcare system. They claim, they make it seem as though, as Jake perfectly mentioned, that this would cost an additional, $34 trillion, and that is not the case. It would replace the healthcare system that we have right now, which is wasteful, and unfortunately we pay a lot for in the form of private insurers and in taxes. But unfortunately, we don't get the care that people in European countries get. I mean, look, I mentioned this during a recent debate that I had on Medicare for All, and it's amazing that the very people who keep pushing and lobbying for us to give foreign aid to countries like Israel that offer universal health care will then turn around and say, the US just doesn't have the resources for universal health care. I'm sorry. Okay, well, apparently Israel's able to do it. So why are we giving them money if we don't have the resources to do that for our taxpayers? Now, I'm not making a case against foreign aid. I'm just saying that it's a disingenuous argument when they say we don't have the resources.
Why doesn't a single reporter ever report that the entire rest of the developed world, all of Europe, has single payer? Like somehow it's unrealistic, not pragmatic, but the rest of the world does it. Somehow, what are they, geniuses? Are we stupid? What is it? Anyway, I'm not anywhere near done with the Democrats yet. I almost call them Republicans because in fact, that is really what they are, these Democratic so-called leadership. So Frank Pallone from New Jersey says that we should just shore up the Affordable Care Act. Just get a little bit of change. Because that's what you campaign on, right? Just a tiny little bit of change. No. Blue wave and resistance. Just kidding. So he says, I've always been an advocate for Medicare for all or single payer. Not true. He said, but I just don't think that the votes would be there for that. So I think our priority has to be stabilizing the Affordable Care Act, preventing the sabotage that the Trump administration has initiated. Now, if you really were for Medicare for all, there would be one good way of showing that by voting for it or co-sponsoring it or introducing it. But you're not gonna do any of that. Instead, you shore up the Affordable Care Act. And Medicare for all, I'm theoretically in favor. Lie. Total lie. He is not a co-sponsor of it. Here's another liar, Richard Neal. And he's the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And all these Democrats have pretty little words like, oh, eventually we'll be in favor of it. But are you co-sponsoring? No. Are you voting yes? No. Are you even allowing a vote? Hey, okay, you don't want to vote for it, and you get paid by the healthcare companies to be corrupt, that's your business, not my business. But whether you allow a vote, that's all of our business. So you're telling us that we all voted for you for change, and then you say, no, just kidding. We're not gonna change a goddamn thing. Why? Oh, the Republicans in the Senate, shut up. That's why people don't vote for Democrats, because you guys purposely lose. I got another one, Joe Kennedy. Oh, he's on fire if you go on Facebook. He's paying a lot of ads on Facebook to spread his speeches on the floor of the House. Oh, he's a real fighter. He's into the resistance. And he says he's for Medicare for all too. He says, I'm more than open to the idea of single payer. Well, there'd be a great way to show that. You could vote for it. He also said he's unquestionably a single payer is part of the discussion going forward. Well, really, we're having a discussion. How about a vote on it? Then he said, I think the first step is trying to make sure we maintain the progress that we've had with the Affordable Care Act. In other words, no, I'm not actually in favor of single payer. No, I'm not gonna vote for it. No, I didn't co-sponsor it. No, I don't think we should put it up for a vote. So I got it, Joe. And why do you think Joe Kennedy did the rebuttal for the State of the Union? Because that's what the establishment going, good boy, Joe, good boy, good boy. Why do you take the corrupt money from the healthcare industry and do their bidding? Let's just put a Band-Aid on the Affordable Care Act. Let's not do what 70% of the country wants, over 80% of Democratic voters want, and what they just voted for. Let's not do that. Instead, let's play games. The last one, Nancy Pelosi herself. So Pelosi said in June that ideas like Medicare for all, quote, would have to be evaluated in terms of the access that they give, the affordability of it, and how we would pay for it. Oh, thank you, Nancy. Why don't you just repeat a Republican talking point? How are you gonna pay for that? How are you gonna pay for that? Yeah, I got Republicans who say that. We actually know how we're gonna pay for it, and we've said it over and over again. We don't need the Democratic leader to parrot the talking points of the Republican leaders. They're pathetic. They are corrupt, and they were never, ever going to do anything they promised. So that's who Nancy Pelosi is. And likely, the rest of a lot of those corrupt Democrats will probably make her Speaker of the House. So I don't know if I've been clear enough. This is, I know, verboten Washington. Everything I've said here makes heads explode. Oh, Nancy Pelosi, master legislator. Hey, Nancy, I thought you were a master legislator, right? So Representative Pelosi, this is a perfect opportunity to be a master legislator. You're the one who said it, not me, right? Why don't you pass Medicare for all? Then I will scream from the rooftops that I will turn right around because I care about facts. And I will say Nancy Pelosi is a master legislator. But right now, the master legislator is running for the hills. Going, oh, no. Republicans are right. How are we gonna pay for it? How are we gonna pay for it? The Republicans are right. Oh, what a master legislator. Pathetic. Schumer in the Senate, he gets away with everything. Why isn't his ass on the line too? Let's go. I mean, in the House, they at least have the majority of the Democrats who've co-sponsored it. Schumer, where are you? Where are you? Nowhere.
He's waiting for promises from Mitch McConnell.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure Mitch will want to do this right away.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why people are upset at Democratic leadership. This is why. We knew you weren't going to do it. Okay, so I'm glad that the monsters that are the Republicans are not in charge. But I can't wait to primary every one of these people and drive them out of Washington and get real people who are gonna actually do what they promised and deliver on healthcare for everyone in the country. So that if a child gets sick in this country, we are not going to let them die. Young Turks. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.